for anybody listening, if this is an area that's daunting for you and you feel like you don't have it all figured out, you are not alone, because we do not have it all figured out either.
Let's hear from Mark. Mark, when you went through your funding, so what were the challenges? How you overcame those, and why you went with private investors as opposed to other funding options? I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. 100%. So Breadless, we're doing something completely different, as you mentioned. We're redefining the definition of a sandwich, wrapping our sandwiches in leafy greens like Swiss chard, turnip greens, collard greens, along with offering hearty rice bowls, salads. So we're a fast casual restaurant concept, offering fresh and tasty sandwiches in bowls with wholesome ingredients. We don't even offer a microwave or a fryer. Everything is roasted in-house in a convection oven. When we were getting started, there was nobody doing anything remotely comparable, so there were no major benchmarks. We got into the trenches and tried to figure it out. And the first step before getting any funding was to prove that there was market demand for what we were doing. So we started by selling sandwiches out of brown paper bags in gyms in Detroit, funny enough, and people started leaving notes for us asking where they could get these offerings. And then people were asking us for catering, and we were just figuring it out along the way. But at the same time, building proof points and credibility for the fact that there was demand for these offerings in particularly areas that nobody had recognized or thought of as markets for high demand healthy eating. But we were proving that that was very much the case, where just because somebody didn't have access to it didn't mean they didn't want it. And we used that in that story. And I also wanted to learn more. I got a job as a sandwich maker after business school, just in the trenches at $10 an hour. And so we leveraged the background and the story and the market research around this to then get some backing for what we were doing. And the way I thought about that was, well, who has previously been successful in raising rounds of financing in the fast casual or the QSR category. So I used PitchBook data to type in every single investor who had ever invested in concepts like Sweetgreen, Kava, et cetera, who are in the quick service fast casual space. I ended up getting a list of hundreds of people and then plugged each one of those people into LinkedIn. I ended up finding a guy who had seed funded, Sweetgreen, and we had a mutual friend, and got connected with him and built a relationship. And he ended up actually, after overnighting a sandwich in New York City, which I had no idea how to do, at a friend at UPS figured that out, decided to write, our first angle check. And then we had several other people who came along and supported us from, Tech Town in Detroit, from the city of Detroit, from ID Ventures, Michigan Rise, Detroit Venture Partners. Several people came alongside us from some institutions as well as individuals, including customers, actual Breadless customers as well, became investors. And we have a variety of ways that we've pursued capital. We did not pursue debt capital to get started. We probably wouldn't even been able to get debt capital to get started because we are doing something from the bottom up that is, of course, risky. It's never been done before. There's no prior precedent for it, and therefore equity capital was going to be the capital that assuming that somebody believed in the story and the vision that we were putting out there to bring nutritious breadless meals to neighborhoods everywhere, then people believed in us enough to give us equity capital. And this is because we have a really big vision. We don't have we're also learning, right? We did not want to have we did not want to have to repay people immediately for funding coming in. So we wanted long-term flexible capital with people who believed and were aligned with our mission and our story, which is why we pursued the equity route, along with, of course, free money is the best money. And so if you can find great ways to get grant funding, we did take advantage of that, from local opportunities as well as national opportunities to pursue grants.
Amazing. So one question we have is, first of all, so what I heard was, although it was not officially crowdfunding, you actually did have customers who believed in you, and it was kind of in a very small scale, kind of a crowdfunding. So, and partially at least. So that's the best way to go, because that's proof of concept right there. Because when customers believe in a product, they're like, okay, how do I invest in this, right? So that's great to hear. So one question we have is, what's your experience? Actually, you kind of covered this, but the question is, what is your experience with private investors and their impact on business control and growth operations? So basically, the question is more about, okay, they did invest in you. So how much of a control they have, meaning day-to-day operations? are they more about like high level guidance, or are they just, poking their nose into everyday operations? Like probably if you can cover in about 1 to 2 minutes, what your experience is.
For sure. For us, they are very small minority investors. We used a vehicle called a safe note, which is widely used in the venture capital community for, scaling brands. That's kind of like a convertible note, but it is not a debt instrument. It's a future agreement for future equity, meaning in a future equity round, their investment in the note would convert into equity, but it gives them no governance rights in the present form. So me and my co-founders are all the majority shareholders of the company, fully control the company, but we have people who believe in us and see the vision in us becoming a nationwide brand and want to be along for that journey before an eventual, IPO, similar to like a Sweetgreen or a Kava that, IPO'd for, $4.5 billion recently. These are the reasons these people are investing. It's not because they expect to get an immediate return on their investment, which is very different from if you're opening a restaurant and you want to operate 1 to 2 restaurants and you want this to be a game-changing opportunity for your family and want to operate it locally. You're probably seeking a very different type of investor base than we currently have. Now, in that case, you may still have an equity investor, and the way that you negotiate with them may be a very personalized situation that aligns with your needs and their needs to figure out a structure that works best for you and the governance that works best for you. If you're going to continue to manage it, if there's somebody who has a lot of expertise that really wants to get hands-on in the restaurant space, then that might change the narrative a little bit. But of course, what's most important is that the mission of the company is being served and that you're doing what is best to serve the customers in the best way, and aligning the relationships between who's managing it and where the capital is coming from to make sure that's happening. And in our unique case, having long-term invested partners who want to see the vision, who could support us on this growth journey was really important. But if you have an existing restaurant that is generating cash flow, then debt might be a phenomenal product for you because you don't have to give up any ownership and you have the means and the cash flow to repay that debt in real time. As a startup creating a new category, we didn't even have access to the debt capital markets in that capacity. And so we sought out aligned equity investors who weren't looking at this as a short-term opportunity, but we're looking at this as a very long-term opportunity.
Yeah, great answer. By the way, you covered an interesting point. Like I mentioned, in each one of those options, inside those there are many sub options. So like in the private investor market, so Mark mentioned safe notes. By the way, safe, S stands for simple. So like it's something that came into be in about probably 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. So yeah, simple agreement for future equity. So that's a sub option within private investor option. So Mark has used it. So like he mentioned, no dilution is there, but in the future, but in the immediate vicinity, there's none. But at the same time, so it's pretty much a loan when you think about it. But more to that is that you get the expertise, but at the same time, technically, the investors do not have a direct right to get involved on a day-to-day operation. So that's great. So one of those options. So choose what is best fitting for your unique situation. So Mark has picked what is best for him at this early stage. Because the vision is for Breadless to be a nationwide franchise operated, a multi-location operation. So, Mark, you're going to say something. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, I think what's more important than the how is who you're working with, right? Because an investor is like a marriage, and you can't part ways with who your investment community is. So it's really important that you find great relationships and that you vet each other. So what I wanted to do was find people who had prior knowledge and experience in specific industry and with companies with similar aspirations in scale and growth, so that I would be speaking to people who already are thinking in the same way that I'm thinking, so that we could align our interests much more seamlessly. And so the question that I would ask myself, no matter if I was in a different situation, is what am I trying to achieve, and who would be the types of people who would be a good fit for our current situation, whose interests would be aligned with what we want to achieve. And then to make sure that you're communicating upfront and transparently with those investors. And if you assign, and the terms come later, right? The first step is is this a relationship that makes sense based on your goals and my goals? And if they're excited about you, they're excited about your opportunity, and you're excited about them, then you can then work on benchmarks for, okay, in other situations, how have situations like this been structured in the past? And in that case, you want to work with other people, or whether they're advisors, whether they're local advisors, organizations like CFO Plans, et cetera, who can help provide benchmarks for you for how similar types of scenarios have been structured, and then use that as the starting point for an actual negotiation on numbers. But the starting point, I would say, to try to find people who would just be a good fit, or organizations who would be a good fit, and then work out the details of here are what the numbers are going to look like, and here's how we can work on a deal. For anybody listening, if this is an area that's daunting for you and you feel like you don't have it all figured out, you are not alone, because we do not have it all figured out either. We are very much a startup and are learning and trying to do the best job. We're very aware what prime cost is. We know food, beverage, packaging costs. We know about labor, and we are trying to utilize all the best tools and practices to help us as well. So I'm very much learning from all this information as you are. Now, some of the tools that we do work with that we are starting to employ, some of which has already been employed, and some of the things that we're working to employ to get better at these things include, like for our POS, we use Toast, right? Which of course enables us to, whatever POS system you're using, to track all of your sales data from a product mix perspective, and know the exact quantities, the volumes of every single thing that you're purchasing, right? Or excuse me, every single thing that you're selling, right? And then the next step of that is, of course, you purchase whatever you need to sell. And so understanding what you're purchasing and the par levels and all of that, and understanding what's going out the door is really important. And so we're trying to use better tools like XtraChef, which is a component of Toast, to map all of our purchases and all of our invoices to understand every single thing that we're purchasing, and be able to track those purchasing usage over time, and to be able to then plug in all our recipes so that we can look at, well, what does each one of our products, if a jerk chicken and mango sandwich, which is absolutely delicious. If you're in Detroit, you got to check out Breadless and get a jerk chicken and mango sandwich. Quick plug. But the cost of a jerk chicken and sandwich, how do you understand the cost of it? Well, everything, it just comes down to portion, right? And so understanding the portion control of every single element of the sandwich. If you get 3.5 to 4 ounces of chicken, right? If you're getting 1 ounce of cheese, if you're getting 0.4 ounces of tomatoes, etc., then breaking down based on your invoices and looking at the cost per ounce. Well, what does each ounce cost you? And then how many ounces go in a serving? So you could build the bottom up cost of what is that actual sandwich cost, right? And then if just the raw cost of the sandwich is whatever, $2.50, and then that is your theoretical cost, right? But then, of course, there's going to be waste and all these other factors that could come into play. And using tools like XtraChef to help plug in all of our recipes and aggregate all our purchasing can help give us a real-time view of what your theoretical cost is, and how that may fluctuate, based on real-time market changes in the supply side of the equation, right? So we are in the process of utilizing all these tools and data to make more informed decisions around what we're sourcing, and ultimately even the decisions we're making on our menu. If we know, what's selling and what's really popular and what's most profitable, then we're trying to use that information to inform, well, maybe we should make more menu items like this that is really profitable, that people really want, and use that as analysis to help say, okay, what are some things that are driving maybe high cost and high cost of goods sold, but are necessarily not huge demand drivers. And so we're trying to do that various types of analysis, and also put into place methods to track our waste, as well as to utilize all of this to help determine what even should be our par levels, right? Like that was a question that we had in beginning this exercise, but utilizing the data to inform all of the analysis from Toast to XtraChef to ClearCogs, another tool that we work with, to help to identify how much food should we be preparing. And then on the labor side of things, of course, leveraging whatever your payroll provider is, to help do analysis from, of course, we have employees clocking in and out via Toast, and we're using Homebase, right, to actually manage our payroll. CFO Plans manages all of that for us, by the way, in terms of actually getting our people paid, but utilizing these tools so that you can see, all right, if your forecasted sales for the next week are X, whatever, $20,000, and then if you don't want your labor to be more than 30%, then that your labor costs can't be more than in this case 4,000 in any, in a specific period of time. So you do the math to determine how you want to budget for your labor based on what your sales are going to be. And you can utilize these tools to help, do that math for you. So if your labor cost can't be more than 6,000, if you are scheduling your employees, the software might tell you, hey, you're budgeting for, based on the people that you scheduled, $6,500 in labor. Then you say, okay, well, we got to adjust we should adjust the schedule to make sure that we're hitting the budgeted numbers that we've set for, and call it 6,000. And so our approach is to utilize tools to help us with this. Of course, Excel is a very basic tool that can help you as well if you don't have the budget or know what software that you can be working with. And of course, working with parties that can help you to organize the data is really important. Like CFO Plans, who we work with for all of our sort of components of aggregating, information, and help us to look at that information in various ways. But it is an iterative process, right? And we're still very much going through this in real time, trying to dial in what is the optimal labor model, which of course is going to fluctuate based on maybe seasonality, maybe what's going on in the world, maybe what's going on with your own personal business, and how your customers respond to you, as well as on the product side of things. There's always going to be changes going on in the supply chain, and that will impact your costs in real time. And so I think it's really important that you just have tools that you can have visibility into what's happening. And then the more visibility you have and the more you have data to process this information, the more you can react to it, make the best decisions that you can with the information that you have, and to leverage others' expertise to help you if you don't know something, like CFO Plans.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, so basically, restaurant business has become very much a data business now. So if you rely on the data analytics, your chances of success is, I think, 10x, 100x, 200x. It's a data game. So a couple of questions that came in the channel. So some of the tools, I'll mention some names. I guarantee you that we have no preference over one or the other, but some of the tools that we have seen, like for inventory management, you can use XtraChef, like Mark mentioned. XtraChef is part of Toast. Then Square also has their own things. And then if you think about inventory management alone, MarketMan, there's a software tool called MarketMan. You can use that. And then also in terms of a combination of a lot of tools, there's a system called Restaurant 360. Restaurant 365. So you can use that. So if you look at, actually, if you just do a Google search, you can find many of these things, and then you can kind of compare and contrast, pros and cons of each tool. And then there's one question about labor management. So hours tracking, like I mentioned, most POS systems have embedded a tool in that. Again, Toast has one, and then Square has one. And then if you want to do a third-party one, there are tools like When I Work, and then there's one called Deputy. Those are tools that you can use. So not only for tracking, but also some cool features like when employees let's say log in and punch their clock, they had to be within a certain radius from the restaurant, so no one can cheat. So that kind of things, cool features are there. It's GPS tracked. You can switch on or off those features depending on how you run the restaurant and the trust levels. So some of those things can be really handy. And then also very hands-off, pretty much. I mean, you waste very little time into this. One of the questions is actually how much you save on this. So if you think about it, there are hidden costs, there are very apparent costs, right? So if you think about your own time, that's money. And then in terms of inventory, if you save 5-10% of wastage, well, that's a saving of 5-10% from print cost, right? So that's the saving. It I can't put out a number because it all depends on the size of the restaurant, the type of product you have, all depends on that. But I'll put out a interesting, stat again. What we have seen, give or take, prime cost amounts to about 50 to 65% of your revenue. So if you think about that, and then depending on the type of restaurant, that number can, the composition of that can change. So if you take the prime cost totally, if your restaurant is more high end, then that means your prime, the food cost is much higher than labor cost as a percentage. So if you are more of a fast food type, like let's say a burger shop, then of course your food cost is less in a percentage than your labor cost because you need more people to run the restaurant, right? So depending on your operation, the composition of labor and food can vary, but typically give or take, it's about from anywhere from 50 to 65%. That means you need to cover all other costs, non-prime costs within that 35% margin, right? So that's what you need to keep in mind in terms of prime costs.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure if any of you got into the restaurant industry because you were excited about compliance and financial statements and back office operations, right? But it is really, really important stuff to take care of and to make sure that it's accurate and on time and filed according to regulations, et cetera. So our approach has been to leverage others to help us with all of these related things from the financial statements. And so for background color as well, I actually used to work in the financial services industry. But as Gary said, your time is money. And so even as somebody who is really adept and aware and knowledgeable about financial statements and financial models, et cetera, I don't want to spend my time on that. I'd rather look at the information and review it and help use it to make decisions, but the actual preparation, the organization of all the information, I don't think is in the best use of my time. And so I leverage CFO plans for all of that related stuff. Everything from the regulatory reporting and the preparing of the financial statements, both our own financials, and as we mentioned, funding was a portion of this as well. So we have stakeholders, and these individuals, it's important for them to get access to timely and pertinent information as well. And so we will prepare reports for our various stakeholders, and in addition to additional things that we may want to see, right? Some things are easy where you can just go into your POS system and click on, your sales summary, and you can do deep dives to get at your sales per week, by day, by hour, your average order size, and all of this, your average check size, your turn time. You can get all of this from all of your POS, right? But of course, having that organized into a P&L to understand, not just your revenues, but your cost out of the equation, and not just your prime cost, but then all your operating costs, and ultimately, your cash profits or your EBITDA and your net income, and then, you're understanding your balance sheet, your cash flows, getting together your full statement financials is really important. We use CFO plans for that, but also the different ways that you need to pay your suppliers and as well, like very important as well. So setting up payment terms with those suppliers and making sure that you have mechanisms in place to get them paid. We also use CFO plans for that. In addition to just your general, sales tax requirements, reporting, filing for your taxes, whether they're sales taxes or just your federal and state taxes. We have, there will be, partners that CFO Plans works with that we also collaborate with to get our actual corporate taxes filed. Element of the business, we leverage their expertise to help us with, so that we can focus on what we do best, which is serving customers delicious food and having a great environment and making our employees happy, because that's also a big part of the expertise as well, right? Your ability to serve your customers is based on your ability to also serve your staff, right? Make sure your staff are having a phenomenal quality of life and a great experience, and managing paperwork and back office is not what they're in the business for either. And so we try to leverage others to help us with that, so we can do what we do best. But this is such an important area that you do have to get right, and one way or another. So it is my recommendation would be to work with someone like CFO Plans or them to help you.
Thanks, Mark, for the kind words. So it's so 1 hour is up. We'll share our deck with all the participants. And if you guys have any questions beyond this, feel free to reach us. You can reach me on LinkedIn or like email us at new@cfoplans.com. Or like you can find us, many of us on LinkedIn. So feel free to ask. We'll try to answer any of those things. Thank you for the participation. Have a nice day.